During COVID, when lockdown was going on, I was trying to make sense of the world. This was the first time in my life we had a situation like that where we had a disease that was rapidly spreading and there was no cure. And I wanted to know, obviously fill this gap in my knowledge. And that's what I do is when I don't have answers, I like to look for answers. I think we all do that, which is why we have a lot of, and I think that's what religion tries to do, is give you answers that make us uncomfortable not knowing them. And obviously not every answer can be known. There was no way to know how we would have dealt with COVID at that time. I'm glad we found ways, we found the vaccine and everything. So, but when this was happening, when there was no vaccine around, when we were all in lockdown and things looked really bleak, I turned to history to find out what happened in the past. How did we go through history? Because I know as people, as a civilization, we have it really good right now. We have cures for diseases. We have hunger, clean water. They are probably the best it has ever been. And there's books about this. Bill Gates has written about this, and Vaclav, Smil has written about this. I'll link to some of those books in the description. It's been some time since I've read those. But I was reading books like that to understand, and I was actually looking for books to see how did we get past issues we've had as a civilization in the past, not just the past 100 years, but thousands of years. And that led me to Jared Diamond. He wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel. That's the big one. And he also wrote a few of the Collapse, Upheaval. These are all bleak topics, bleak books. And I was very skeptical reading them. They were also humongous books. But I read them. And even though they talked about a lot of bleak history, human civilization, it gave me a lot of hope because we are here today, in spite of all of those things happening. And I recommend reading those books, especially if you're feeling a little bit cheerful. That is a good way to just I think you need to be a little bit cheerful to read those books, is what I'm saying. But that aside, I went to history to understand, get hope really. And I'm starting to lose my voice. I apologize. So I went to history. And now that Sora 2 is out, and I made a video about that recently. I'll link here if you want to go see it. And I was kind of talking about the issues I see with Sora 2. But now that Sora 2 is out, it made me say, okay, we don't have a way to understand Sora 2, which is ChatGPT, or rather OpenAI's version of making videos very quickly. So if you don't know, here's a 5-second view of what Sora 2 is. It looks like TikTok. You open the app, you can scan your face, so it knows what your likeness is like, and then you can just type in a prompt, make a video of me jumping over 10 cars, or jumping from one building to another, or shaking hands with a celebrity or something, and it'll just make a video like that. It's that easy to make a fake video with your likeness, with human likeness, that is very believable. Other than, obviously, if you're doing something outrageous, that it could be fake, but otherwise you could get away with making some very believable videos on it, and you can make it very quickly, and the effort to make that video is very low now. It's just a prompt and access to the app. So that is Sora 2, and that got me thinking, okay, what in history can I look to understand this better? Because I'm being very cynical, at least I am feeling very cynical about Sora 2 right now. I feel there's more downsides than upsides. Frankly, I don't see any upsides yet, but that's probably a factor of my limited view, my limited vision. So I went to history to look for that. And a while ago, I heard a podcast about Neil Postman, who was an author. wrote multiple books. The big one he wrote was called Amusing Ourselves to Death. He wrote that in the 80s, and then he wrote Technopoly in the early 90s. So when I was hearing this podcast, I was realizing that what he wrote so many decades ago is so relevant even today, which instantly caught my attention, because anytime an author writes an idea, puts an idea down that was old but feels relevant, that means that idea was maybe perhaps timeless. So anything that is timeless ranks very high on my list of reading. So I've ordered those books, I've not read them, but I was doing that research. I came upon these 7 questions that Neil Postman asked, and I think it was part of a lecture he was giving against his book Technopoly, so it's not directly in the book. But there's 7 questions that are out on the internet. I'll link to those 7 questions below, and I'll actually put them on the screen here as I'll talk about them. But I want to take a chance to answer those questions, because I don't know if OpenAI people talk through these questions or not. And these are relevant questions that's going to affect you and me and everybody around us. And I think these need answered, these need discussion, and somebody needs to talk about them. Maybe somebody already is talking about them, and I'm putting my name in the hat as well. I'd like to bring this up for discussion. I'd love to hear what you think about them. I'll admit my view might be a little bit cynical, so take it with a grain of salt. But what's important is that I want to change my views. I want to understand this more. And if that means I may have to come back in the future and say I was wrong, I'm happy to do that. So with that, I'm just going to get into the 7 questions, and I'm going to read them, and I'm going to try to answer them myself, or at least just talk about them and go from there. And hopefully you can try answering those yourself too. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, what your thoughts are. Here we go. Again, these were in the 90s, mind you. First question. What is the problem that this new technology solves? I don't know what that problem is. You know, were we having a problem of making TikTok-style videos? Was there a bottleneck I did not know about? It seemed everybody has access to those videos, and there's more videos than you can watch. So what is the problem? Is the problem that TikTok is kind of capitalizing on this platform that gives videos like that space, and OpenAI was trying to find their way into the platform, just like YouTube has with Shorts and Instagram has with Stories and whatnot, and I'm seeing Pinterest have things like that maybe, and Etsy. I can't remember. It seems like those kind of long format videos and that you could just scroll one after another without really thinking about it. Those seem to be everywhere. So is OpenAI trying to just capitalize on that? Is that the problem this technology solves? Is OpenAI does not have a platform that does that? Is that lucrative of a platform? I don't know. And that's the thing. Like I don't see what problem this is solving. I mean, maybe for a creator, if they're trying to make a video, they don't have the resources. They just need an idea and the video is done. So they don't need reason as solving the problem of resources. But I think the resources are important because the effort going into making the video plays a role. And I talk about that in my previous video. You can go watch that. Which brings to the next question. Whose problem is it? And that's the thing. You know, did we ask that, hey, we need the ability to make videos very fast, especially videos that we could never make ourselves? No. Did we... We didn't ask that, so who's asking for this? Is it now OpenAI saying, hey, OpenAI as a company, we need to have a platform that does TikTok-style videos? Is it their problem they're trying to solve with this? And that's a question to be asked, right? And here's what happens when we're in this space where there's a new technology, Sora 2, and nobody knows what problem this solves. We're still scratching our heads. And at least maybe I am, and maybe there are people out there who are like, wow, we were waiting for this for years. But maybe, and if you're one of those people, please tell me, educate me, I don't know. But I want to know whose problem this is. I'm certain I have some limitations in understanding whose problem this is, but I'm not that dumb that I would not even be able to fathom whose problem this is. So I think that's an issue when we cannot point to a problem this is solving. Like when electric cars came out, we could all say, okay, this solves the problem of gasoline consumption, so on and so forth. Obviously, it creates more problems like range anxiety and everything. But even if you go back in the day, television solved a problem that maybe radio was not able to solve. And I think a lot of what Neil Postman wrote back in the 90s was his response to television that was it was different from radio. So that's what he was talking about. But those were questions he was asking about television at that time. Okay, so that's 2. Question number 3, what new problems do we create by solving this problem? Excellent question, obviously. We are creating the problems of trust. We're creating the problems of widespread doubt about various issues that whoever has an idea can now execute very quickly. Those are the 2 things I can think of that are new problems that are created by solving whatever this problem is, making fake videos very quickly. What else could there be? Are there going to be talented influencers are going to be just as good and equal platform as influencers that are beginners? That the skill between the talented ones and the beginner ones doesn't matter anymore because anybody can make these videos. Maybe that's a new problem. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. All right. Question number 4. Which people and institutions will be most impacted by a technological solution? So, I mean, people who make videos for a living, editors, cinematographers will probably be affected because with Sora 2, you don't need somebody holding a camera. You don't need somebody in an editing bay. You probably don't need somebody with sound. So maybe those are the obvious ones I can think of. But I can also see when the trust gets eroded, when doubt gets raised, there's going to be an immense amount of people and institutions that could be affected by this. I mean, we could be spreading lies about disease, we could be spreading lies about cure, which we've already seen it done very effectively without having AI video available to us. And imagine 5 years from now when AI videos are indistinguishable from non-AI videos or regular videos. How easy would those kind of doubts be? How many people are going to lose their lives because they did not get the vaccine or the treatment or whatnot? I personally know people who were anti-vaxxers around COVID who, one of them passed away. It's very sad. But that's the people who would be affected, institutions. This person worked at a company that was affected by his death. I'm sure their family was affected and so on. Anyway, that's getting very morbid, but it could be immense amount of impact if we can easily raise doubt and erode trust. Number 5, this is my favorite question. What changes in language occur as a result of technological change? And I mentioned the word video in my previous answer before here, and that's one of my pet peeves lately, is that I don't think we're changing language fast enough. We're going to see some change in language happen, like making a video might be a different thing going forward, because it could be anything from what I'm doing here, sitting in front of the camera, miking myself up, turning the camera on, and turning on the light and the thing and that, and a script and whatnot, and I don't have a script, but even some bullet points. I often discuss these ideas with my friends and family before I come to you with them, and that piece goes away, right? Because we don't need to do that anymore. But that is what making a video is to me. But in the post-Sora 2 world, making a video is writing a prompt, and that's it. And so what is making a video? That needs to change. That language needs to change, and I don't think it is changing. And or maybe if it doesn't change, the phrase making a video, or even what a video is, will become different now going forward. And I think that is a change that needs to happen. We call photographs, images, illustrations, video as things that people made. And then when people altered them, we would say they were photoshopped. We turned the noun Photoshop into a verb, photoshopped. So how we need words for video. What is an AI video? It's not a video because I didn't make it. A person did not make it. They prompted it. and then maybe we'll start defining what make means. So we'll get into a lot of semantics here, but I think we need to use language to our favor so we can have a conversation about this. And without language, we can't have a good conversation. We're going to keep confusing ourselves. I remember this story on another podcast that was talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and how she brought up I want to say it's something about gender equality. I think she was bringing up some legislation on it, but she went from using the word sex, which could mean male, female, to the word gender, because sex was also charged with the act of sex. And bringing that up in court would prevent people from wanting to talk about it. So she changed the word to gender. And that enabled her to have the discussions and get the bills and legislation flowing, the laws made and so on. So we need a different word to be able to talk about this, and I need somebody to come up with a word. So if you have some words about photos, videos, images, illustrations that AI makes that are different from what humans make, we need a word for that. Maybe we need a word for something in the middle that was augmented by AI. Maybe we can just use that augmented word, but we need a word to describe them. They're different things. That was 5. Number 6. Which shift in economic and political power might result when this technology is adopted? Well, I mean, we're already seeing a ton of this shift happen with, we can go back to the Cambridge Analytica days. Quite a few shifts happen in politics, but I mean, if we can raise enough mistrust and doubt, I think people with poor intentions can sway people another way. We can sway popularity. We can sway attendance in crowd sizes, all kinds of things. So I feel like this is where I almost want to pause myself from talking about it, because I'll get even more cynical here, because it feels like more doom and gloom. And I'd like to hear more optimistic views about it. So I'm going to pause here and ask you, what changes or shifts in economic and political power do you see happening here? What happens? What does this technology, Sora 2 technology, enable people to do that can have that shift? I'm very curious, because it feels very dreary to me as I sit here today. Last one, number 7, what alternative and unintended uses might be made of this technology? And I think that maybe goes with number 6. But here's the thing, we're such a fragmented society today. So think about this. If somebody today has an intention, I want to influence people to vote for whatever, or I want to influence people to not use plastics anymore. Let's just say, use that as an example. Well, they have to get a camera. Maybe they have a phone already, which is fine, but they have to think about a convincing way to tell people that. They have to then come up with a script and rehearse it. I mean, even doing this takes time to get better at it. I'm not very good at it, but there are other people that are. So they'll have to go through a lot of preparation, skill, effort, and then invest time, money to get their story out there, whether it is in a video form, an audio form, or just a written text. And they have to get popularity with it for people to be able to see that. Well, that effort has gone away because they can go from idea to execution right away, immediately. And that is an issue because any good idea or bad idea will get executed right away. It's going to be very hard to distinguish between the two, I think. And that's an alternative and unintended use we can see, because as fragmented as we are, as polarized as we are as society, somebody's good idea with well intentions is a nightmare for somebody else. And there's no way we're not going to have an impact. If you want to outrage, you want to anger the people that don't agree with you, you have the tools available today very easily with Sora 2 to do that. Whereas before, you would maybe have a bad idea and then it would not go anywhere because you don't have the time, money, or skills to execute it. Today, all of that is gone. So I can see it can be used for really nefarious activities. Could it be used for good too? But yes, it can be, but that comes back to the same thing. My good may not be your good. It may be your nightmare. And how do we tie that together? How do we do that? I feel like this might polarize us more, because if we are already in echo chambers, we're going to be louder in our own echo chambers, and it's just going to completely be deafening with the use of fake video on Sora 2s. So that's my take on those 7 questions, but obviously this needs to be part of a larger discussion. I'd love to hear what you think about it. This may not be the last time I talk about Sora. We're going to keep talking about how easy it is to view those videos too. That consumption side of it is going to be pretty easy, so I'll talk about that maybe in another video. But until that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one.